So guys, what is going on? I hope you guys are well. So guys, I want to talk about a video that I made I think a week or a couple ago, a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. I can't remember when I made it, but I was talking about Canelo and Errol Spence. And you know what? There's a lot of talk. Both of them, um, Errol Spence has expressed an interest in fighting Canelo Alvarez. And now Canelo's come out and said he would be interested in that fight. He said the weight might be an issue with that fight, but he thinks Errol Spence is a great fight and a fight he would definitely look into. Now Errol Spence then responded yesterday and saying that he would love to fight Canelo at 160. He would look to fight Canelo at 160. Now, listen, even if the fight happens at 160, I don't know whether Canelo's going to be looking to come down to 160. I believe he can, because I don't believe he's even a big middleweight, let alone super middleweight. I just think he's so skillful, so powerful, and so big where, he can move up weights, and he's so strong that he can compete at these higher weight classes because of the way he's built. He's built like an absolute house, Canelo. And I feel Canelo can move up the weights. Now, a lot of people would, allude to the Mexican meat. I just feel like if the the officials and the governing bodies have allowed him to fight, I'm pretty sure he's being tested and he's, coming clean. So, I don't think we should speculate just because, we're not in control of that. But in terms of what we've seen from Canelo over the last couple of years, it shows that he can move from 160 to 175. I think he can compete at those weight classes from what we've seen. I don't think he's going to come any lower than that. So I can't see him coming down to 155, the weight that he fought Amir Khan on at. I think the fight would have to be at 160. But then having said that, Errol Spence isn't an Amir Khan in the sense that he's not weight-wise. He's a much bigger than Khan. He's a natural welterweight. And him going up to 160 is probably equivalent to what Khan went going up to 155. But I feel that Errol Spence could make 160, and actually, if you look at him, he looks quite drained at 147. It's taking a toll, and it's definitely hard for him to make that weight now because he is a massive 147. He's tall, he's long, he's rangy, he's big, and I feel the thing is with him, he's a skinny, muscular, big like Spence. He's not a huge. Now he has said that he comes down from 170, 180, which I don't think is good for any fighter, for any athlete. If he's having to cut that much weight, it's not a good sign. If a guy is 170, 180, it's never a good sign when a guy at 147 has to come from 170 or 180. That's just too much. You're almost having to cut 30 pounds, and that takes a long time to reduce that weight. So I think Errol Spence should look to be no more than 160, 163, 164. You should not walk around at anything heavier than that when you're fighting at 147. I don't think you should be 10. I think you should only be between 10 to 15 pounds heavier than your fighting weight, if I'm honest with you. I think if you're a clean, living a good life athlete, boxer especially, because it's such a tough sport and you're living the life, you should only be about 15 pounds heavier. Guys like Mayweather and Spence were so blessed. Guys like Mayweather and Pacquiao were so blessed where they were fighting at weight classes where they didn't really belong, in terms of they were just fighting above their natural size. Really, both of them weren't really welterweights, but they were able to fight at those weights because they were so naturally gifted and so much ahead of the other fighters. They were able to fight up at those weight classes, but really they shouldn't have been fighting at such a high class. It's just that their skill level was often on another level. Spence, however, is fighting in a weight class right now where he's, a lot of people call him a weight bully. A lot of people say that Spence shouldn't be fighting at welterweight. Spence should be fighting at junior middleweight. I do think him fighting at middleweight wouldn't be a crazy jump. However, I still think it would be a massive jump, and I still think he would be a massive underdog because, like I said before, a big welterweight doesn't mean you're a good sized or even a big middleweight. Just because you're having to come down, the fact that you can make welterweight shows that you're not a big middleweight, because a middleweight like Canelo couldn't make welterweight. He couldn't make welterweight. He just couldn't. So I think that shows that Canelo's going to be a much bigger man on the night. Also, Canelo's very, very skilled, very good fighter. He's got a very good chin. He's very strong on the inside, which Spence is very good at. He's very good. He's got a very good inside game. He likes to get those body shots off. And Canelo's got an unbelievable. He's probably got the best body shots in the game, Canelo, and he's very strong on the inside. So I feel like Errol Spence is kind of going into a fight where if he was to take on Errol Spence, if you take on Canelo at 160, he's kind of got no advantages really. He may have speed on his side, but Spence isn't really a speed type of guy. If you look at the way he fights, he's not a speedster. He's more of a pressure fighter, a guy that breaks you down and breaks your will and breaks your heart. But how's he going to do that against Canelo, who's stronger, bigger? The only thing Spence may have, he may be a bit quicker. But like I said, he's not a speedster. And I don't like the fight just because of that. I think we're going to find out more about Spence, I think, against Danny Garcia, because I think that fight is going to give us a gauge of where Errol Spence is at. A lot of people are still continuing to talk about Errol Spence's speech, that they think he looks a bit punch drunk. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think we should speculate. Errol Spence was never the quickest talking guy, even before the accident. So I don't know. I can't really make much of what I'm seeing in his speech. Now, he does look a little bit slow, but maybe that's because of the fact that we're looking into it, because we're trying to look for the differences after the accident. Like I said, on December 5th or December 6th, whenever they're fighting, we're going to find out if Errol Spence is there or not. Now, people were saying he looked great in the workout and he looked sharp, he looked good. But again, heavy bags don't punch back. He's going to have a live body in there. He's going to have a great fighter in there looking to punch back and hurt him. So, we're going to find out a lot, because if Errol Spence isn't the Errol Spence that we know he can be, then he's going to get beat against Danny Garcia. We saw in his last fight against Porter, he wasn't on sharp. He didn't look that great yet. He got the job done and got the win, but it was a very close fight. And a lot of people weren't expecting the fight to be that close. They were expecting Errol Spence to blow Sean Porter away, and that didn't happen. So I think people will be looking for an emphatic performance against Danny Garcia. I think Danny Garcia should be not as tough a fight for Spence, just because of the fact that Danny Garcia is not he doesn't fight like Sean Porter. He doesn't, he's not a pressure fighter like that, where he's like awkward and horrible. He tries to fight at distance as well, and he looks for more powerful shots than Porter. Porter looks to outwork you. He looks to out hustle you, pressures you, makes it uncomfortable for you. Whereas Danny Garcia doesn't fight like that. So this is a different fight, different style. However, Danny Garcia does punch harder than Porter. He's got that in his arsenal. So if he catches Errol Spence, he could hurt Errol Spence for sure. Danny Garcia has a lot of power, and if he catches Spence, he could hurt him. I am expecting Spence to win the fight if Spence is anything of what he is of old. Just because I think Spence is the better boxer. I think Spence is a naturally bigger man. I think Spence punches hard too. And it wouldn't shock me if for the first time we see Danny Garcia stopped. It wouldn't shock me, but I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked. I can see Spence stopping Garcia, but at the same time, I think Danny Garcia's got one of the best chins in the game. He's got one of the best chins in the game. So it would be an emphatic performance and a great statement from Spence if he manages to stop Garcia. Just because, Garcia's got one of the best chins in the game, and it's hard to see him being stopped. And when you see this Sean Porter fight, I think Garcia's got an even better chin than Sean Porter. But again, like I said, it just depends on each given night. If a punch lands, if Errol Spence lands a massive punch, who knows? He could take Garcia out. But I am expecting fireworks, and I'm expecting a cracking fight. In terms of the Canelo fight, that's a fight for the future, I think 1 or 2 years down the road. Because let's not forget, both of them are around the same age. So it's not like any of them are going to be able to old man one another. They're both around the same age. I just don't think Errol Spence is ever going to be a big middleweight or ever going to be able to compete with a great middleweight. When you move up weight, significant weight, like Errol Spence would move up, you've got to pick and choose your fights. You can't go in there with the best in their prime. Just because the chances are, if Sugar Ray Leonard went into a fight with Marvin Hagler in his prime at middleweight, he ain't winning that fight. He's not winning that fight. So I feel like when you move up weight, you've got to pick and choose your fight. The only reason Sugar Ray Leonard fought Marvin Hagler because he saw Marvin Hagler wasn't the same guy. If Marvin Hagler was the prime Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard doesn't win that fight against Marvin Hagler. You know, so like I said, you got to pick and choose your fights at the right time. If you go and fight a guy in around his prime, right, that's way bigger than you, way stronger than you, that, as we've seen and as history has shown, generally you're going to come out second best. And that's why I'm against this fight, because I can't see Spence winning. Now, Spence fans may say otherwise. I just can't see Spence winning the fight. You know, I just can't. I can't see Spence beating Canelo, who's a big, strong middleweight, you know, who knocked out a light heavyweight, who I don't believe Errol Spence would be able to beat. You know, Errol Spence wouldn't be able to beat Sergey Kovalev. And I know, like I said, styles make fights, different styles come to the table, but Errol Spence isn't a slick Lara. You know, he isn't got the kind of style that I think would cause Canelo trouble, if I'm honest with you. But again, if Errol Spence wants to take on the challenge and dare to be great, you know, we saw Kell Brook do it. We saw others in the past do it. Can Errol Spence dare to be great and actually pull it off? Because we've seen a lot of guys dare to be great, but they don't pull it off, they get beat. Can Errol Spence dare to be great and pull it off? I don't think so. But again, that's if Errol Spence wants to challenge himself and Canelo wants to oblige, then we've got a fight. And we've got a fight that it doesn't matter what people think about it, everybody will tune in and everybody will watch it, because they're two of the you know, Spence is growing. He's a growing name. Canelo's already the biggest star in the sport. You know, eventually we could have a super fight between these two. You know, pound for pound fighters as well. You know, Crawford's already said that he's not going to fight Canelo. Canelo's too big. That's perfectly fine. Canelo is too big for Crawford. Crawford's a guy from 135. There's no way you should be asking Crawford to move up to 160 to fight Canelo. That's silly. But in terms of Errol Spence is a big dude. He's a big guy. But again, a big welterweight isn't a big middleweight. What do you guys think? Is it a fight that you guys would entertain? Is it a fight that you guys would like to see? Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Guys, make sure to smash the like button. It really helps the channel. It really helps the algorithm. It really helps me grow as a channel. So smash that like button. I really appreciate it. All of you that do smash it. All of you that have subscribed. Share the video, of course. And guys, I will see you all in my next video. Peace.